Hi, this is Darlene with Digital Photo Mentor, coming to you with another Luminar AI news update. It's July 27th, 2021, and the folks at Skylum have just completed the rollout of their newest release, Luminar AI Update 4. This update includes the much anticipated Portrait Bokeh AI tool. It's brand new, and I'm excited to show you what it can do. As usual, they've also done some bug fixes and some minor enhancements under the hood to give you a better experience using the program. This is a free update for all Luminar AI users, so please make sure you download and install it right away. Please give this video a thumbs up and remember to subscribe to my channel. Let's take a closer look at everything that's new and how you can get it. When you launch Luminar AI the next time, it should pop up and tell you that there's an update available. Just follow the directions to download and install it. If it doesn't, you can find that under the Luminar AI menu and check for updates if you're on Mac. If you are using a Windows machine, it will also be under the Luminar AI menu, but under Help and check for updates. If you're using Luminar AI as a plugin, it should update automatically for you as a plugin, but if it doesn't, just go to Install Plugins, uninstall them both, or whichever ones you're using, Photoshop, Lightroom, or Mac Photos, and then reinstall them. I'm sure you're eager to see the Bokeh AI, so let's dig right into that tool and see how it works. I'm going to show you the tool on a couple of different images, and I also want to let you know that I have created a set of portrait templates for Luminar AI, which are now available in the Skylum marketplace. I'll put a link to them in the video description below. For this one, I'm going to apply one of my own templates called Low-Key Portrait, which will give me a great starting point for this image. I used a long lens and a large aperture to photograph this image, so the background is already fairly blurry. But if I want to add more, let's head over to the Tools panel on the right. And you'll notice now if you scroll down to the Portrait Tools, this Portrait section, which are the yellow and orange ones, there's a new one here called Portrait Bokeh AI. When you open it up, you have to apply the amount first, and Luminar works under the hood to analyze the subject and cut it out for you. So it's really well done, and I find that most times it does an almost perfect job. But if it doesn't, they do give you some tools that you can brush in and out the effect. So let's take a look at the mask that it's applied. So just by hovering your mouse over the subject, you'll highlight in red the part it's chosen as your subject. There's a little bit of her hair that got missed here. So I'm going to go focus on this one and make sure the opacity is at 0. And just choose a slightly smaller brush. And then I'm just going to brush that section in. And if I wanted to get a little bit more focus of the hair over here, you can just look at the before and after. It's actually cleaning up the edges of her hair really nicely, but I could paint in a little bit more of this edge of her hair if I want it to be a little more blended, like so. Okay, so really quickly, you can see that it does a great job of masking the subject. Turn my mask off. For you, and you don't have to worry about the finite masking details, because when you get down into these controls down here, you can actually adjust the edge correction to increase the size of the mask or decrease it. Basically what it does is you can see as I slide this up and down that it's adjusting the edge of the mask. If I go to the left, it's coming in tighter on her. If I go to the right, it's expanding it a little bit so you get a bit more of her hair. So I'm going to go somewhere in the middle so it has a nice cleaned up look on her hair. That looks good to me. Once you're happy with the mask, then you can play with some of the other sliders to adjust the effect. Amount at the top is going to be how much blur is applied to the image. So let's take it up all the way to 100 just to see the full effect. Then you have control over brightness, highlight glow, warmth or coolness, depth correction, and as I already showed you, the edge correction. Okay, so brightness comes in really handy if you have a background that's overly bright to allow you to tone that down with one simple slider. So not only can you blur the background, but you can darken it. If you want a little bit more glow to your bokeh, you can increase the highlight glow, and you can also change the temperature of the background to be warmer or cooler. Let's take a look at a before and after to see what this is actually doing. That's before the bokeh tool and after. I'm going to show you the depth correction slider on another image, but first I'm going to show you a handy trick for taking these settings and applying it to another image. If you right-click on your image and choose Adjustments, or you can use the keyboard shortcut Command or Control-C, open the new image that you want to work with, and then do Command or Control-V, or you can go to right-click, Adjustments, Paste. So you can see that it's done the full effect, including that low-key portrait template that I applied to the previous image. Now let's play around a little bit with the amount on this one and with the depth correction. So this one, I've darkened the background because it was quite bright, so I like that effect. I'm going to turn the highlights down a little bit, and I'm actually going to cool the background down instead of warming it up. And let's see what happens when we adjust the depth correction. The further I go to the left, it's like the blur is coming closer to the subject. You can see that now even the wall right behind her is out of focus. So it's not really realistic because even with a super long lens and a huge aperture, that would not be occurring naturally in camera. So to try and make it a little more natural, the default is 0. The further you go to the right, the further away the background will be blurred. So less of the effect will be coming closer to the subject. Okay, so if you want to increase that bokeh effect, go to the left. If you want to decrease it, go to the right, like so. So along with the amount slider, the depth correction slider will help you adjust how much blur you have in the background. I want to show you one more and how it works in conjunction with other AI tools inside of Luminar. This is an image that I've used my Sunset Magic portrait template on in that same collection that I mentioned. Let's take a look at the before image. So I've done a sky replacement with the template and warmed it up a whole lot. So let's take a look at what happens when we apply the Portrait Bokeh AI to this one. Bring the amount slider up. And the first time you do this, it's going to take a little bit longer because Luminar is analyzing the subject to try and determine how to best cut them out of the background. Let's take a look at the mask it created. Wow, it's done a really good job here. So even around hair and finite details, including the places between the arms here, it's done a really great job of cutting them out. Now let's take a look at if we go more extreme with our blur. And on this one, we can really adjust the depth correction. Because again, you wouldn't want the blur starting from immediately behind the subjects. It's not going to look realistic. So I'm going to back it off a little bit. Because this was shot with a fairly wide lens, you're not going to get as much blur as you would with a long lens. But this actually brings up a really good point, is that if you're using a kit lens or you don't have a lens with a large aperture like 1.8 or 2.8, this is a great tool that allows you to make beautiful blurred bokeh backgrounds on your portraits. Currently, this tool only works for portraits because it's looking for people as a subject, but that's something that they may consider for future, such as macro and so on. So put your feature request into Skylum. Let's give this one a little bit more highlight glow. Now you notice that because I've already applied the sky is a separate image that replaces the one in the original image. So you'll notice that the Bokeh AI also is applying to the sky. So it's really smart and it works together with the other tools inside of Luminar AI. So I've taken this one from a really nice portrait. I used flash off camera here to balance more with the ambient light, but I wanted to give it a much more sunset feel. So I added one of my own skies. You could get that in my sky pack. I'll put a link in the video description below. And I've used the Portrait Bokeh AI tool to blur the background even more to make them stand out. As a Skylum ambassador, I was actually able to be a beta tester and help them develop this tool. They took feedback from professional beta testers like myself to develop it. So there's a lot of smart technology going on, like I mentioned, the automatic masking. That saves so much time if you've ever tried doing something similar in Photoshop or another program. With this image, I want to show you some improvements that they've made to the local masking or texture overlay. If you haven't used this tool, you need to go to the little brush icon on the right under local masking and then click Add Texture. Now I've already added one and you'll notice that something is new, that it actually now shows the name of the image that you've added as your texture. So I'm going to turn it on And this is something else that I'm actually working on. It's a set of bokeh texture overlays. So it's been really fun for me to create this, and I'm excited to bring it to the world very soon. If you've used this tool before, you'll notice a few differences. There are now previews so that you can see the images that you're going to apply as the texture overlay. So you can see my bokeh textures that I've been playing around with here. And you can see the preview of them, like similar to the Sky AI tool that they've implemented, as well as Augmented Sky. And as well, you can also go to show custom textures, and it will pop up and show you the folder where they live. And you can see that I've included a folder with my bokeh test images, and that then shows up as a choice in here. So it allows you to add your own custom textures in a folder, and they will show up here as a preview. So those are great updates to this tool. You can still adjust this as normal, including all of the blend modes, brightness, contrast, and masking. But the biggest changes here have been the visual previews and the ability to add your own custom tools, your custom textures that you can easily find again next time. Finally, let's take a look at the improvements to the Sky AI tool. When you open the tool, you'll notice under Sky Orientation, there is now a button for horizon position. This is replacing the 3 sliders that did this before. So now you can adjust the sky up and down, as well as do the horizon blending and rotation, all within this little pinpoint here. If you are a Lightroom user, this will look very familiar to you in terms of it matches the graduated filter. So now you can simply move it up and down by grabbing the pen, and you can see that where it was placed before was not that accurate. So now I can adjust it. I can also rotate it and spread out the fade and rotate it like this, right? So you can rotate it if your horizon is tilted, or if you just want the sky to appear a little bit differently. I'm not going to rotate this one though. By positioning your horizon correctly, and just click that again to have it take effect, how the reflection shows up is going to be affected. So now when I shift the vertical position of the sky up or down, the reflection is going to match based on that center point. And now that I've actually taken it down, this looks quite nice. So I might leave it there. And you still have all the other same tools, relight, strength, and saturation, to affect the overall look of your image. But I think that this tool with a horizon placement and the pinpoint is going to make a big difference for some tricky images. This is an image that I thought Luminar might have trouble with finding the placement of the sky and how it would blend in with all the boats and wires, but it's done a really nice job, and I was able to use the sliders to effectively place the sky and adjust the reflection accordingly. Okay, so it did actually do a really nice job of choosing where to put the horizon. Okay, I might want to put it a little bit lower, but it's done a really good job right out of the gate on a challenging image, or one that I thought would be challenging. This is a stock image that I downloaded, and I thought it might give Luminar AI a run for its money, but let's see what happens when I choose a sky. This is from my sky pack. This is one of my favorite ones. I use this one a lot, and let's see how well it does with horizon placement. So I click that, and we should be able to see the dot. Okay, I thought it might be tricked because of the number of pieces of water in this image. You can see the water in the foreground, in the middle ground, and then there's water in the background. So I was thinking that it might be fooled, but it also did a nice job on this one, and it chose the horizon correctly. Overall, I'm really impressed with where they've taken this with Luminar AI in terms of the reflection, the water. It's done a really great job on a challenging subject. I'm going to do a copy and paste and put it on another image that I think might be tricky. Command or Control V. Well, the only thing I think I'm going to do here is flip the sky so that I have the light coming from the right direction. Always make sure your light direction matches the subject. And then I'm just going to make sure the reflection's turned up, relight strength. And you could see what a really great job it's doing in terms of matching the tonality of the original image with that new sky. Let's see how it did with the horizon placement here. Pretty close. The only thing I think I would do is maybe pull it down a little bit And in this case, I think I'm going to rotate it just to match a little better. And then I'm going to increase the fade so it blends a little bit nicer at the horizon. But just from one click, how easy and fast is that to go from one image to the next, and you could batch process an entire set of similar images. There's one more new feature I'd like to show you inside Update 4. If you are using any of the tools that have assets, such as skies, which require additional images, texture overlays, or templates, you can now go into that place and choose Get More Skies or Get More Textures, and it will take you right to the marketplace. Let me show you a quick example of the templates that I've created for the marketplace called Fabulous Faces. They work really well on portrait images. This one is called Sunset Magic, so the before and after. It does add a sky replacement and warms up the image. This one is called Antique Touch, and it's great for portraits like this where you want to have an old-time feeling. Glamour Glow softens the skin and gives a beautified look. High Key Portraits is for images with white or light colored backgrounds, and Low Key is where you want to have a portrait which is dark and moody. This is one I'm particularly proud of. It's called Bokeh Bliss, and it adds a bokeh texture overlay. There's also a black and white preset called Hollywood Heyday to give you that look of a glamour portrait of the 30s or 40s. Ghoulish Grunge gives you a cross-processed or toned look to your image for something really different. And finally, Golden Light adds this really warm toned glow to your image. To see how to get the templates, just go to the template module at the top, scroll all the way to the bottom or almost at the bottom, and you'll see this new button here that says Get More Templates. It'll take you into the marketplace, and once you are there, my templates are in the signature collection. Just scroll down until you see the black and white image, and you can learn more about it there. Just look for the Hollywood black and white portrait and add them to your cart. I hope you enjoy using them as much as I did creating them. I couldn't wait to get started with the Portrait Bokeh AI tool, so I've already done a tutorial on that for you. So if you want to give it a go now, just click here. To learn more about Luminar AI processing in general, I have an entire playlist for you here. Just click over on the video on the right. Stay tuned, and anytime there are news updates about Luminar AI, I will have them for you here on this channel. Remember to subscribe and like this video, and if you enjoyed it, share it with friends. Until next time, take care.